Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time, in a distant kingdom, there lived a beautiful princess named Snow White. Her skin was as white as snow, and her hair was black and shiny. However, this beauty troubled a wicked queen who was filled with jealousy. Every morning the queen would ask her magic mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And every time the mirror would reply, "Queen, you are the fairest, but Snow White surpasses you now." These words fueled the queen's jealousy. She saw Snow White's beauty as a threat and decided the woods and do not bring her back. The hunter, though fearful of the queen, did not want to harm Snow White. So, when they reached the forest, he was mesmerized by her beauty and said, "You must hide in the forest. I have learned of the queen's plan. Never return." Snow White fled deeper into the woods. As she wandered, she grew tired and eventually found a small cottage. Curious, she opened the door and discovered a cozy home filled with charming items. She wondered who lived there and began to explore. After a while, she saw 7 dwarfs returning home. The dwarfs, who worked in the mines collecting gold and gems, were delightful little beings. They were thrilled to find Snow White and welcomed her into their home. Snow White began cooking for the dwarfs. Every evening, while the dwarfs worked hard, she prepared warm meals for them. The dwarfs realized how much brighter their lives became with her presence. She sang songs with them, played games, and filled their home with joy. As days went by, a strong bond of friendship formed between Snow White and the dwarfs. Each of them shared their stories, and she told them about her escape from the castle. The dwarfs admired her courage and decided to protect her at all costs. However, the wicked queen learned that Snow White was still alive and became furious once more. This time, she devised a new plan to kill her. Disguised as an old woman, the queen approached Snow White's door, holding a poisoned apple. "Hello, dear princess," said the queen. "This apple is the most beautiful fruit in the world. Take a bite, and it will bring you freshness and happiness." Believing the old woman's sincerity, Snow White took the apple. But as soon as she bit into it, she fell into a deep sleep. The queen smiled wickedly and left. When the dwarfs returned home, they found Snow White in a deep slumber. They tried everything to wake her, but nothing worked. Heartbroken and helpless, they placed her in a glass coffin and decided to hide her deep in the forest. The glass coffin looked like a work of art, showcasing her beauty. Days turned into weeks, and Snow White's beauty enchanted the entire forest. People came from far and wide to catch a glimpse of her. One day, a brave prince happened to pass by and saw Snow White in the coffin. Captivated by her beauty, he fell in love with her. He approached the coffin and decided to try to awaken her with a kiss. When the prince kissed Snow White, a miraculous thing happened. Snow White opened her eyes and slowly awoke. The prince and Snow White gazed at each other, while the dwarfs joyfully danced around them. Snow White expressed her gratitude to the dwarfs and the prince. Together, they realized that the queen's curse was broken and that they could finally live happily ever after. The prince took Snow White to his kingdom, where they held a grand wedding. As Snow White and the prince lived happily together, the dwarfs always supported them. The queen, meanwhile, faced the consequences of her jealousy, and her inner wickedness led to her downfall. And so, Snow White, the 7 dwarfs, and the prince lived happily ever after. The end. What do you think about the story? Please share in comments.